Hello, hello, and we are live. Right on. Um, Welcome to a fireside chat. I'm Eric Miller from the Daily Bern. This is sort of an impromptu conversation with two really fantastic progressive candidates running sort of side by side in the great state of Texas. And this was actually Zeeshan's idea. Zeeshan was on Daily Bern, I guess, last week or so, um, in response to, the tragic is not really the accurate word, but in response to the horrible, horrific news out of Minneapolis today. Yesterday was aspirational. Today, back to horrific, right? So, we wanted to just connect and, provide a platform. I'm going to ask you guys some questions as, prospective leaders, what you would do about it and so forth, right? Um, we all share the same righteous indignation. Actually, let me say it's a fireside chat sponsored by Fires in a Dumpster at the corner of 26 and Nicolette, which we're all feeling, right? So, before we get to some of the details and so forth, I thought it would be appropriate. Reverend Haynes here is running in Texas 30. And being that you're a reverend, I just wanted to give you an opportunity, if you would, like to seize it to, say a few words, in honor of today's victim and also, Renee Good. Today was Alex Preddy, I believe is his name. We're sort of getting
Right.
some information about him, but if you want to say a few words, the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate both this opportunity to have a conversation with you and, of course, my beloved brother, Zeeshan. I am so grateful for his courage and his leadership, and again, for this conversation opportunity. And I really appreciate your sensitivity on a day where the pattern continues, because this is number 10, I believe, since September of a person who's been killed by ICE. So this is not an isolated tragedy. This is a pattern. And so we remember Alex, we remember the other persons who have been killed, including Renee and Great Porter, too many to call right now, but we remember them in prayer. Shall we pray? Well, God, we thank you and praise you that when our hearts are heavy and broken, we can bring our pain to you. And then we thank you that you give us the courage to not only feel the pain, but then to fight, to alleviate, or even eradicate those systems that create pain. And so we remember Alex. We pray for his family. We pray for his friends. We pray for the courageous freedom fighters in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that you will protect them. And then, oh God, give us what we need by way of wisdom and courage so that we will stand against this heinous, horrific, heartbreaking system that is manifest and expressing itself now through ICE and its iniquities in the name of immigration. So we ask that you, oh God, would bless our conversation as you heal our nation, and especially Minneapolis and the family of Alex. Amen.
Amen. Well said. Um, yeah, and thank you for that, and thanks for those amazing words. Let me kind of start just by setting the stage, if you will. Both of your positions on IZ, we've talked about it last week. If you want to say it pretty succinctly, and Freddie, if I may, Freddie, Reverend Haynes, your position on ICE and abolishment, prosecution, and so forth. Where do you guys stand?
Completely, it must be abolished. Uh, we've talked about immigration reform for a long time. This is evidence that we've got to do something different. But in the meantime, ICE has to be abolished. I tried to say earlier that, we've had 10 people killed by ICE since September. That's not an accident. That's not an isolated tragedy here and there. That's a pattern that is a part of a system. that is intentional. And so I think it's very important that, if we're not talking about ending ICE as we know it, abolishing ICE as we know it, the question becomes, what are we here for?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and Eric, I think that Reverend Haynes would agree with me on this. I think we've reached a point where we have to take a step further. We have to hold these ICE agents accountable. I think that that's why I've been calling to prosecute and abolish ICE. I think that abolishing ICE was a moderate stance now. I think when I first started this race, abolish ICE was seen as sort of an extreme stance. Now it's very moderate. And if you're a Democrat right now and you're not willing to say abolish ICE, I don't think you pass the litmus test. Just like if you're not ready to say Gaza is a genocide, if you're not willing to say abolish ICE, I don't think you should be elected to Congress. We need people that are bold. They're going to step up and say that, hey, no more of these agents with masks, with no uniforms, with no badges, no IDs, being given these weapons and going into communities of color and causing havoc. And now recently, they're killing everyone. It's not just immigrants. And the fact that 32 people died in ICE detention centers in the last year, that is a crying shame. The brutalization, the fact that women are getting raped in ICE detention centers, the fact that locally, I want to tell you all a very sad story. There's a guy named Brother Maher. He was taking care of his son who had Pompeii disease. And he had been reaching out to his congresspeople, the people that I'm running against, actually, to do something about his case so that he could take care of his child. He was the lone caregiver for this 30-year-old kid. The child just passed away because he didn't have his father there to take care of him. And his father is still in ICE detention. And right now we are calling for a release of Brother Maher so he can at least attend the funeral of his son who just passed away. This is the brutality that we live in. Something must be done.
Yeah. I mean, no due process. It's just straight up a concentration camp. That's pretty much it. Bold face, right?
Right.
The incident today, is the early reports. We have a bit of fog of war, right? But, the DHS reports are already, state media, Fox News, if you will, is already framing it as, he had a gun and so forth, right? Anyone that saw the George Floyd tape and then saw the way it was spun on the right, we're going through that again here, right? We're at ground zero, another incident. He's on the ground, he's prone. You guys have seen the videos, I'm sure, and we'll see it. And, shame on corporate media for framing it as, taking the DHS statements as, at face value, right? Not just as propaganda, right? So, I'm bringing that up because, that is a challenge, right? So, as candidates that are running on this platform, you're preaching to the converted with me and probably a majority of folks that are listening, if I'm being honest, right? But, when you are talking to people that live in a different media bubble, right, that don't have the objective facts, that believe, not to harp on George Floyd, but believe that constructed narrative or believe the DHS narrative, which is sure to unfold in this case. How do you penetrate that?
Well, I think first off, it's very important for those that are listening. If you believe in abolishing ICE, you believe that's what's happened today is wrong. That's what happened to George Floyd is wrong. If you believe that things like Black Lives Matter, if you believe that these immigrants should not be being brutalized, then you have a duty to do something about it. Part of it is you should go to the streets and protest. Yes, that's one good thing that you can do. Obviously, you can't protest right now because it's snowing outside here in Dallas, at least. And I know there's winter weather all over the country, but that doesn't mean you stop remaining engaged. You have to engage your fellow Americans and let them know about what's happening right now. I think that there is an authoritarian swing that's happening. ICE is just part of a greater piece of Donald Trump's Project 2025 that's starting to become really scary. But that doesn't mean we go and hide and get scared. We have to go out there and do something about it. What does that mean? Go and get involved in the political process. We have candidates like myself, like the Reverend Haynes, who's on this call as well, bold progressives who are not afraid and who are unapologetic, that will stand up to ICE, that will stand up to Donald Trump. The only way we're going to get elected is with your support. Go out there, get involved with the campaigns. Today, you can literally, after our call today, go phone bank for myself, go phone bank for Dr. Haynes. That can help you guys, help us win this race. We have to go and talk to folks. And the last thing I'll say is this, Eric, you bring up an important point. There's definitely an echo chamber in certain cases where, there's people like ourselves who clearly see that what's happening is wrong. But there's clearly people on the other side who haven't seen the light yet. Please don't give up on them. That's my message to everyone. Please do not give up on them. Continue to have conversations, meet with them. There's still, people care. People will start to see the videos that are coming out. My X feed is full of videos of brutalizations by ICE. If you can't see that, if you can't understand that, it will just take some time. And the last thing I'll say is this has to be a part of a greater push to end the structural racism that is built into our government. That means we must end qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is the practice where police officers and ICE agents are immune from prosecution for their crimes. When I get to Congress, and I know Reverend Haynes will agree with me on this, we will work together to end the practice of qualified immunity, which really hurts Black and brown communities more than anything else when police officers commit crimes and are not held accountable to the same criminal justice system that we're all held accountable to.
You're here.
And may I just piggyback on that because what Z is saying is so profound. Just a few weeks ago, the vice president of this country said that the ICE agents they have complete immunity, and how one can be completely immune from prosecution in a real sense is an attack on justice. And a country that calls itself, by way of a motto, one of liberty and justice for all, ICE and the idea of complete immunity, that's what Vance said, not even qualified, but complete immunity, that is an attack on justice. And so it's very important, I think, what Z said earlier, and that is we must expand, not just defunding or abolishing ICE. I need to emphasize that, abolishing ICE, but we also have to insist on prosecution of those who engage in this kind of illegal, and I would say un-American behavior, but then it reminds me of the sad reality that ICE has in its DNA the slave patrols. When you think about the slave patrols and their ability to stop, and they were completely immune from any kind of prosecution persons and ask them for their papers, whether they were up north or south. This is more than the Gestapo of Germany. These are slave patrols. And so if you have anything against that kind of evil behavior, then staying on the sidelines now is not acceptable. It's very important that we are engaged in the process. It's very important, and I love the fact that both of you have talked about the echo chambers, the bubbles, the political bubbles that too many of us live in. I want to encourage everyone to expand who your news sources are, who you're getting your news from, I should say, because in too many instances, we only hear who we agree with in this country. And unfortunately, the politics of gaslighting, the politics of justifying what we are witnessing in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is something that you will see on one particular station, well, really several particular stations of that ilk. I want to encourage you to take a listen to the Eric Millers of this world. Take a listen to the other outstanding journalists who really believe in freedom of the press, especially when the press is engaged in courageous truth-telling. Right now, we are in a dangerous era in our country where there is an attack on the press when it engages in courageous truth-telling and speaking truth to power. And so the press, I love this. I was reading Jamel Hill's memoir, and she was talking about she went to Michigan State University and fell in love with journalism because for her, she understood journalism. Journalists are the watchdogs of society. I love that metaphor. Watchdogs, meaning we are protecting democracy. We are protecting, and by way of democracy, that word simply means what? The power of the people. And so we need journalists who are committed watchdogs who will take a stand against the people in power and give the power back to the people. And so I wanted to really emphasize that because that is the dangerous era we are in right now that will, in a real sense, result in the complete erosion of democracy.
Here, here. Well said. If I can just add one quick thing to that. So when it comes to corporate media, there are, you're going to get a lot of both sidesism, right? Deliberately go out of their way to be centrist, which, skews the results, which is,
Exactly.
the Overton window to the right continually. It's sort of where we're at, right? I would implore everyone to engage in, legitimate independent media, right? In this case, there's an organization, Status Quo. If you don't follow Status Quo, they're on the ground, they're in the protests. Status Quo, subscribe to them. Independent media, Majority Report, Midas Touch, and so forth, right? Don't just rely on CNN or MS Now or whatever corporate media, because you're going to get, the both sides. You're going to get the Scott Jennings of the world, right? You're going to get
Right.
both sidesism stuff, right? Which is
Right.
sliding the Overton window further and further towards the authoritarian state that we're in, right? So I'm glad you did raise the media. Thanks for the shout out. Let me ask this about. I was watching some of the protests yesterday in Minneapolis, and it's like I said, it's inspiring to see 100,000 plus people out there, common cause, righteous, absolutely incredible, right? And we'll talk more about today's tragedy, but one of the conversations I saw in the crowd was the journalist, I think he was from Status Quo, was asking an attendee, would you be supportive? This is a one-day general strike. Would you be supportive of a longer, protracted, engagement? And they said yes. Obviously, it takes resources and whatever and all that stuff, right? Pretty common answer. But the thing the journalist said that then hit me in the heart was, do you personally have the wherewithal to withstand another 3 years of this, right? And when I heard that, you're focused on the battle of the day. And then I just heard it and I was like, oh, 3 more, right? But your true north is still your true north. And the reason I'm bringing it up and framing it this way is you guys are both running in the 2026 midterms, which, at this point, we're assuming we're having them and so forth. We're not going to let that happen otherwise, right? But if both you guys are successful, you're on the front lines for 2 of those 3 years, right? How do you fight that fight? Let me go to Reverend Haynes first. How do you fight that fight? You get in January 2027, I think that would be, right? Where do you start? What do you do?
Well, and thank you so much for that question, because you reminded me of what took place during, and this is we just had the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott. And one of the things that we learned is that they organized for the long term. It was not a one-day boycott. They did have a one-day boycott to begin to see if it would be effective. And then they set up for 381 days by way of what? Organization. And so it's really good. And I salute our sisters and brothers in Minneapolis and those around the country who are in solidarity with them in terms of saying we're not going to buy. We're going to break this economy if we have to, because this is still a capitalistic country, and so money talks. But beyond, the one-day effort, it's going to be necessary to organize. And what they did in Montgomery, they set up long before there was Uber, Montgomery bus boycott. They had a carpooling system that upset the power structure to the point where they had an injunction against the carpool. So we recognize that organization for the long haul, playing chess, as it were, is what it's going to take. And so when we think about January 6th, 2027. I can see Zeeshan and I basically reminding the nation of what took place January 6th, 2021, 6 years before, when the current occupant in the White House unleashed a horrific, heartbreaking attack on democracy. It wasn't just on the election, but really on democracy and the peaceful transfer of power. And so having a reminder of what that day means, which will signal the fight that we are about to undertake. And so with that being the case, again, Zeeshan and I will not allow our eyes to be taken off the prize. I can see us also taking a stand and saying, okay, oh, so we've had all of these distractions. Can we get back to what took place with you and your good friend who allegedly hung himself in prison because we've seen too much redaction. We'd like to see exactly what was promised as it relates to the Epstein files. And so getting back to that and ensuring that the fight remains public, ensuring that we educate the populace as to what is going on. That is a commitment that I am making to ensure that we continue to know what's happening and that we don't, again, just trust the echo chamber for our news sources, but that we are continuously being educated as to what's going on. So I'm looking forward to continuing the fight, but then bringing the fight inside the House. And a part of that will be to make sure that we educate, but we not only educate, but we fight with a chess mentality, that we've got to fight for the long haul.
Here, here. Well said. And before I get too further away from it, and Z, I'll go to you. So you're running a TX-30. What's your website real quick, Reverend Haynes?
Thank you. It's HaynesForCongress.com, HaynesForCongress.com.
Awesome. And we'll mention a few more times. And I think, Z, your primary is in March.
We have the
March
same date. So
Okay.
March 3rd. Right.
Okay. March 3rd is the primary. And Zeeshan Hafeez, TX-33, ZeeshanForCongress.com, if I remember correctly.
Zeeshan for Texas.
ZeeshanForTexas.com, right? And both of you guys you can donate. These are people-funded campaigns, no corporate donors. You know, these are guys that are going to legitimately fight to abolish ICE. They're not going to hedge their bets. They don't take money from big tech, big farm, big whatever, right? You know, private prisons, what have you, right? So these are righteous warriors who will fight this fight on day one. So Z, back to you on that question about, what do you do January 6th, 2027? Where do you get started?
Yeah, Eric. So first off, it's like me working with Reverend Haynes here. We're building a coalition. We're building, some people power together. We hope that uniting District 33 and 30 is going to be the first step towards working together, towards pushing a bold progressive vision in 2026. Because if it's just me or if it's just Reverend Haynes, it's going to be hard to fight the good fight. Yeah. We're getting together with people all across the country. There are a number of strong progressive candidates that we're going to build a coalition with, and we're going to go to Congress together. I'll mention one, Showkat Chakraborty. We just met earlier this week. He's running out of San Francisco. He's going to take Nancy Pelosi's old seat. He's one of the original Justice Democrat leaders. And I'm excited because if it was just me, I'm sure Reverend Haynes would say, if it was just him, it would be a challenge. But we're going to build people power together. There are progressives all across, and they're going for Senate as well. You have Abdul Saeed in Michigan. You have Graham Plattner in Maine. So we have people running from the House and from the Senate who are going to be true progressives. In a time like this, Eric, where America is in danger, as Reverend Haynes mentioned earlier, the very American democracy, the fabric of our nation is under attack. The very foundation of the nation that we live in is under attack. We have a man who's literally passing out hats that say Donald Trump 2028, a man who wants nothing more than to be a dictator for life, and who has continually passed things like ICE is just the tip of the iceberg. If you look at what's happening with the Patriot Act, he is now weaponizing the Patriot Act against Americans to spy on them in ways that were never possible before. He's using technology, using companies like Palantir to get as much information and build a true police state in this country. We're not going to beat that with corporate, centrist Democrats. We need people all across the country to get involved with true progressive causes. The last time we had a major progressive wave was 2018. 2018 was the year, 2 years after Donald Trump first came into office. I strongly believe this is not only going to be a blue wave in 2026, this is going to be a progressive blue wave. But if you're on this call today, right now, we need you. So Reverend Haynes needs you. I need you. The Showcots needs you. Everyone else across the country, we need you to lean in, get involved, canvass, phone bank, send text messages, do whatever you can to get the vote out. Our election is very soon. Our early voting starts on February 17th. But we're going to work hard together. We're going to fight the good fight together to hopefully do this. But the only way we can even get to January 6th is if everyone leans in. This is not about me. This is not about Reverend Haynes. It's not about one individual. This is about all of us coming together and trying to save the American democracy together, because it is something that's worth saving. And that's something I think we can all agree on.
Right, right.
Reverend Haynes, you want to add anything to that?
I can't, and I can't thank Zeeshan enough for saying what too many are afraid to say, and that is we are right now in a police state, and it's dangerous. It's hard for us to judge Russia, Nazi Germany, when we think about what's going on with masked individuals who are engaging in state-sponsored violence. All of this is on the line, and our running as I love it. I love the progressive blue wave is what is going to turn this country in a different direction, in a direction that will be one of liberty and justice for all, a country that will reflect the people that comprise this country. And so I want to thank Zeeshan for saying that, because it's that serious. And I'm also excited about the fact that we are forming a progressive team across this country. The squad will not be alone. There's a progressive wave that is coming, because there are those in this country who recognize that the police state is not what we want. Dr. King, in his very last speech, declared, "Be true to what you said on paper." We are running so America will be true to what it said on paper, and it will take not one individual. It's going to take a team. There's a phrase by Mary McLeod Bethune, a great educator in our community of years ago, and she said, "If I tap you with my finger, I may get your attention with two. I don't know. But if I organize those fingers into a fist, that's real power." And that's what we're doing. We are organizing our progressive fingers into a fist, because we believe we've got to do better, and this country needs a real change.
Hear, hear. Let me ask you this, since you quoted Dr. King, one of the sort of timeless, unfortunately, quotes of his is, and I don't necessarily have the whole thing, and I think he said it multiple times, was, the true obstructionist or obstacle is the white moderate, right? So with that in mind, we know who the bad guys are, clearly, right? The fascists are going to be the fascists no matter what we do. Can't compromise with them. The fever's not going to break, despite how many times Obama and Biden tell us it will, right? They just need to be defeated, right? So the front line becomes that white moderate, right? The neoliberal centrist corporate Dems, right? So, you guys get into office January 2027, you're in a sea of them, right? To Z's point, there'll be more of you, hopefully, at that point, right? And I'm doing my part over here, but there'll be 30, 40, 50, who knows, 70, 80, right? How do you fight that white moderate? That's an oversimplification of the label, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that I'll put it like this. It will be a fight. And I think that through both moral persuasion, because the question becomes that I would raise to them, what have you accomplished when you have compromised with fascists? You don't accomplish anything. The question becomes, what do you believe this country should be? And are you willing to fight for what this country should be? One of the things that was, and I'll just say it in all honesty, that was frustrating with a number of us during both the Biden administration and the Obama administration was the fact that they would begin negotiations with the fascists already compromising, as opposed to standing 10 toes down, we would say in our community, with, okay, this is what should be. And so we look at where we are right now, and this is going to be my example with healthcare. Let's be honest. What Obama put forth came from the governor of Massachusetts, Mitt Romney. It was very moderate. Many of us were disappointed that it did not go far enough to ensuring that there is universal health care. And he began compromising even before negotiations began, already tiptoeing into, the right area. And by right, I don't mean right as in righteous, but, the right by way of the conservatives. And so as a consequence, we get a watered down healthcare bill, and they've been fighting to dismantle the watered down care bill ever since it was passed. And so imagine if we had gone after true universal affordable health care for all and then allowed them to try to water that down. At least we'd have the Affordable Care Act now, which some people love as long as it's not called Obamacare. But that gives you a sense of the mentality in this country. And so I think it's just going to be important that we use those examples. And I could name so many more where Democrats, moderate Democrats, start out negotiating by tiptoeing too close to the right. And before you know it, we get nothing out of it. And so I think that's going to be important that we, stand 10 toes down and speak with our full chest to moderate Democrats, I'm sorry. I hope that wasn't a slip of tongue. But I hope that we bring them to our side and let them know if we want America to be true to what it said on paper, then we're going to have to be true and we're going to have to stand tall for what we mean.
Eric, I think there's a great point there that Reverend Haynes is making. One of my opponents, Julie Johnson, who has taken a ton of money from big healthcare, big pharma, the insurance companies, for a long time was against Medicare for all. And very recently, she finally changed her position. It was actually a few days after she entered the race against me as a progressive. Eventually, she came to the right side on this. But what I want to read a quote is, and since we're talking about MLK right now, he gives a big bewailing quote to everyone, which is, there is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism.
Right.
The issue is today that too many of these corporatist, centrist Democrats are thinking that they can solve the problems of the extreme right wing with gradual improvements, gradual changes, gradual reform. Anyone like Colin Allred or Julie, when they say you can reform ICE, that is gradual incrementalism. That is not going to solve the problem. Right. An organization that is fundamentally built on white supremacy will not work. I think that Reverend Haynes brought a great example. These are the same types of folks. The Klansmen eventually found ways to get jobs, and there were police officers who hurt people in Jim Crow South. It's a well-established fact. The same thing is happening again. The Klansmen are taking off their white robes and they're putting on ICE uniforms, and they're still wearing masks, though. That's the one thing that you'll have to remember. They will always wear their masks. Now, I will say this. Not all ICE agents are evil. I will say that. But unfortunate fact is there are too many of them that are. And for that reason, anyone that tries to take an incremental stance there, that is not enough. There is actually a question that came from the chat that I wanted to mention real quick, if I can. It is from Elsie, and she asked the question, do you all have any recommendations to young progressives who want to run for positions but feel like they are underqualified? What to study and what to read and what to do? This is a great question, Elsie, and I really appreciate it. Julio is my deputy campaign manager, Julio Costa. If you all know him, he's an amazing progressive voice in Dallas-Fort Worth. He's been an amazing leader in the immigrant rights movement. And he and I were having a conversation the other day. And he said that there's a lot of people that go and show up to the protests, especially young people. But unfortunately, we don't have enough of those young people then go and run for office. I say, do not read anything. Do not study anything. Go and run for something. Just go and do it. That is the best way to learn. We need people at the city council level. We need people at the state house level, at the state senate level, at Congress. We have to remember, becoming an elected official does not require any specific set of skills or anything else. It requires good people, people of conscience, people of integrity. We have too many politicians who are experts at playing politics, experts at listening to corporate overlords, experts at passing corporate agendas. We need more pure people that come into politics from the outside. Both Reverend Haynes and I, we're not career politicians.
Right.
We didn't make a career out of this. We're doing this because we believe in something. We believe in making this country better. We believe in the integrity of the American democracy. We see what's happening on the outside and we want to do something about it. We are forced to do something about it. So I implore you, Elsie, and anyone else that's listening that wants to run, please go out and run. Go out and run for something. There's so many people that can go and make a difference. You will learn. It is something you will learn and you will get better at. We need less career politician and more idealists, especially from the progressive movement. So go out and protest and then go run for something. And I don't think there's any seat that you shouldn't consider. I think it's something that we need more people with some idealism and, some pure hearts to come into Congress or state house or the city council or county commissioner or school board or whatever else. We need people that are good people. That's what we need.
Hear, hear. Well said. It's like it's like that opening scene in Idiocracy where the one couple is very like hedging, should we have children? And they don't have children. Meanwhile, the less educated are having children upon children upon children. They're reproducing, right? So while you're, hedging your bet or, doubting yourself, they're not, right? Donald Trump ran for president, right? Could there be anybody less qualified? Of course not, right? They're not having that same conscience of crisis, right? So Z, to your point, just do it, and if you're idealistic as you framed it, you're gonna learn, right? You're gonna want to learn, right? In good faith, right? They're starting from a position of bad faith. The fact that you're even thinking about it is demonstrative of your good faith, start, right? So looks like we lost the Reverend for a moment, at least. This might be a little bit on the pointed side, back to the fighting the neoliberals, right? So one of the things that was probably a criticism of Bernie, he would sort of stop shy of, once he's in office, he would sort of handle some of his colleagues a bit with kid gloves. He wouldn't necessarily point out their donors and so forth, right? So, while, Reverend Haynes' point about, appealing to the morality is a solid one, I'm not disputing that. A lot of times they're paid to lose, right? So they're actually, they're bribed to obstruct, right? Or be drugged to the minimalist centrist position, right? So, would you call out their donors? How do you, you appeal to the morality and that's not strong enough, right? What do you do next? You call out, well, so-and-so is not voting for this because they take money from Big Farm or what have you.
Eric, I want to point something out to you, and I'll let Reverend Haynes take this. I want everyone to look at the 7 Democrats who voted for funding ICE. Each of them received close to $1 million from AIPAC and the pro-Israel lobby. Some of them $2 to $3 million. Yeah. Is it any surprise that these people are getting all this money to support a genocide in Gaza, that they would then support these ridiculous actions in America? I mean, there's a direct connection. I think that there is a clean barrier that we need to establish. If you cannot pass the litmus test, you do not have the humanity enough to say that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. and you don't have the humanity enough and the care and concern for the American people, the people of Minnesota, people all across this country who are suffering at the hands of ICE, then you are not qualified to be a U.S. congressperson, whether it's a Democrat or anything else. I know at the very least, if you're running as a Democrat, you do not qualify if you cannot pass this simple litmus test that ICE should be abolished and we need to end the genocide in Gaza. If you're taking money from AIPAC and the pro-Israel lobby, it's no surprise that you are voting along with the Republicans to fund ICE. By the way, one last thing I'll say about this, and I'll turn it over to Reverend Haynes, is a lot of people don't realize ICE is being trained by the IDF. Yeah. IDF is, as you know, the Israeli Defense Forces. They're the worst soldiers in the world. They're soldiers that usually use children's heads as sniper targets. They're people that literally go and kill women and children. They have been guilty of so many war crimes, including rape, including beatings, including beating people to death, not just beating them. But they are teaching their same horrible and atrocious tactics to ICE. ICE is literally being trained by them. So there is a direct connection. If you don't see that direct connection, there's a problem. The same, if you look at the Schumer 8, I call them the Schumer 8, the 8 people that voted to end the government shutdown early, the 8 senators, they all had received massive amounts of money from AIPAC and the pro-Israel lobby. That is why we must get foreign interests out of our government. We must also end Citizens United and get corporate attacks out of our corporate influence out of our government as well. And we must return the power to the people. The only special interest that I know I care about, the only special interest that I know Reverend Haynes cares about is your interests, the interests of the American people.
That's it. Thank you. So well said. And I'll just partner with you in saying that one of the things that, and thank you so much, Eric, for that, because there are some who will not be morally persuaded. Some have to feel it in their pocketbooks. We know Martin Luther King Jr. was a preacher who led the civil rights movement. His very last speech, when you listen to all of it, he was exposing those corporations that were engaged in abuses of power, especially of their workers, and not partnering with the community in its development right there in Memphis, Tennessee. And so he called out Wonder Bread. He called out a couple of other entities that some of us are familiar with, because he recognized that sometimes you have to, and this is a quote from Dr. King, redistribute the pain. And so I'm simply saying that as we expose who these donors are and then call for boycotts of those particular institutions, we start to redistribute the pain, while at the same time exposing those who basically are for sale, who find themselves in public office, but they are up for sale. And so as far as I'm concerned, yes, we've got to end Citizens United, because Citizens United, as far as I'm concerned, it sets the stage for fascism, and it creates fascism to be funded. And that's what's been happening in this country. I love what Z is saying about, so you mean to tell me you cannot declare that a genocide not only has taken place, but during this quote unquote ceasefire, Palestinians continue to get killed. The genocide has not stopped. And if your humanity, if your morality does not have the courage to step up and say that, then we will attack you where it really hurts, because you don't have a heart, but you do have a bank account. And since you're for sale, we will go after those entities that basically are have you by the purse strings, because your morality lets us know that you are not the kind of person that will help us to lead. I'm gonna quote Dr. King one more time: a revolution of values. And that's what we need in this era, a revolution of values, because right now the sad reality is values have everything to do with how much money you can get, as opposed to how much good you can do.
Yeah, and 1,400 violations of the ceasefire, to be exact. Over
Yeah.
500 people killed in Gaza, over 250 people killed in the West Bank, over 1.8 million people starving. So yes, the ceasefire is not over, despite what corporate media wants to tell you. The genocide is not over, and anyone that's not willing to say that does not deserve to be representing us in Congress.
You're here. And you mentioned the IDF training ICE and so forth. If you watch the footage from today, broad daylight, middle of the street, masked agents, gang brutality, then they fled the scene like that. You've seen that in the West Bank countless times, right? It's, if you've ever seen one, you've seen the other, right?
Yeah.
There's no difference there, right? And I got to just say, any call where all three of us quote Dr. King, I'm all in on. That's
Eric, what I'll say is this: the fact is, we are spending billions and billions of our dollars to commit this genocide in Gaza. We're giving these $50,000 signing bonuses to ICE agents. We're paying them six figures. Meanwhile, we have an affordability crisis in our country. We have a major affordability crisis in the country. And that's what me and Reverend Haynes are going to focus in on when we get to Congress. We're going to focus on raising the minimum wage to at least $20 an hour. We're going to focus on giving that universal health care, like Reverend Haynes was talking about earlier, free education for kindergarten all the way to the university level, making sure that there's affordable housing by spending, lots of money to build millions and millions of affordable housing units across the country, instead of all this money we're spending on ICE and spending on Gaza and attacking Venezuela. Raising Social Security benefits by at least $200 a month so seniors can have a life of dignity by, raising the cap on Social Security. We're going to focus in on a Green New Deal to provide a sustainable future for our country. We believe in investing in America. We have all these Republicans, Eric, that go around saying, America first, America first. We all know it's not America first. It's Israel first for a lot of these folks. And on top of that, if it truly was America first, why not invest in our country? Why not invest in District 33 and District 30? We have people that are really suffering and struggling in our districts and all across America. We should be fighting for them, and we should be investing in them, investing in our home. That's where our money should be sending, instead of investing in brutalizing people all across the country through ICE or brutalizing people abroad.
That part.
Yeah. I feel like that America first is just racially coded language to propagandize them to,
That's right.
Their neighbor's the other, right? I'm America first. They're not, right? So that's what that is, right? Reverend Haynes, anything you want to add to, just I like that you pivoted to the people, the policy platforms that would materially benefit the lives of people, right? Because that's, you have those crisis of, when you're struggling, you're more susceptible to blame the other, right? So, that is a race to the bottom that we're rapidly running, right? So, it's a progressive platform that can change that, right? So if we had, any one of the ones you delineated there, it alleviates folks, right? It turns that around, and they're less likely to just blame, the neighbor across the street who's, has a different skin color than them, or speaks a different tongue, or what have you, right? Can you talk about that, Reverend Haynes? The people-centered platform and the difference that would make.
Oh yeah, thank you for that, because it's so important that we just see through the politics of distraction. Flooding the zone is what this administration has prioritized in order to, while waving a flag of America first, but not doing anything that puts Americans first. What does stealing Greenland have to do with putting America first? What does kidnapping the president of a sovereign country and bringing them to this country to face the consequences of the law, when we couldn't even get the current president to face the consequences of the law? What does that have to do with putting America first, when so many Americans, 140 to 150 million, are really facing economic insecurity? You're not putting America first. And I love that Z pointed out the fact that we have ICE agents who are receiving these $50,000 bonuses attached to six figures. And think about the fact that we don't have universal health care. Think about the fact that health care costs are rising, and so many Americans right now are one crisis away from economic disaster. Whereas if the money that was being spent on ICE, the Klan in with new mask, if you please, all of that money being spent on ICE, what if that was going to ensure health care for every American citizen, Medicare for all? What if that was going to ensure that there was a true living wage that reflected the cost of living in the area where the person finds themselves working, finds themselves having to live, a true living wage? If we had that, that's what it means to put Americans first. And so maybe we need to say we are about Americans being put first, because to put America first means to, oh, let's go grab Greenland. Oh, let's make the current occupant of the White House the president of Venezuela, so that his rich oil barons can get the oil there in Venezuela. They're not serious about Americans first, because America first for them basically is about billionaires billionaires adding more to their billions and ensuring at the same time that the rest of the country remains economically insecure. We cannot fall prey to the politics of distraction. I'll use the old line. We're not going to fall for the okie doke. We're not going to fall for the politics of distraction, because that's basically what it is. It's tapping in to fears of the other that we lie on in order to justify the lack of vision that solves real problems.
Well stated. Amazing. Yeah. Here.
Eric, if I may interject, I know we're close to being at time, and I want to make sure that. Sorry, my son just decided he wanted to join the podcast as well. I want to make.
He's next.
So, anyways, I wanted to make sure. One thing I wanted to say is that, while we have this investments in ICE to give a signing bonus of $50,000 and paying six figures, our teachers are lucky to get $1,000 as a signing bonus, and they barely make $50,000 a year. Our priorities are completely, backwards in this nation. But what I wanted to do is, since we're at time, basically, and I want to make sure that we're respectful of everyone's time. I know, Eric, you and Reverend Haynes had some appointments this evening. I wanted to make sure we gave Reverend Haynes a chance to just let people know how exactly they can get involved in the campaign. I'm sure there's many ways that you can get involved. Reverend Haynes, can you just tell people how they can contribute, how they can get involved, and what the best way is for them to engage in the campaign? Because I want to let you know I'm a huge supporter of yours. I've already endorsed you. I want to get to Congress with you. So I want to make sure that everyone else knows, because I know people that have been listening, I've been getting messages throughout this call that, hey, why don't we know about Reverend Haynes? People are very excited to help you win, and I'm very excited to help you win. So please let people know how they can best get involved and support and contribute to your campaign.
Thank you so much, my brother from another mother. I want to thank Eric for this wonderful opportunity. This conversation has been so stimulating for me. Whenever progressives get together and talk about envisioning real solutions for real problems that we are facing in this world, that energizes me. So I want to thank both of you. And Z, I have endorsed you. I believe in you and your vision, and I thank you so much for this opportunity. Please go to our website, HaynesForCongress.com. We were drafted into this at the last minute, and we are building this plane as we fly. And so please join us. We'll be opening up our headquarters next week, our office. And so we're excited about that. But go to the website and please be on the lookout and listening for what is next. Because again, this progressive vision is what this country needs at this time. And I want to again say thank you for this opportunity. But go to HaynesForCongress.com, and I look forward to working with you. Z, we're going to go to Congress and we're going to make a difference, because we've got to change this thing.
Beautiful. And Z, same question to you. We covered it on our episode, but before you do say that, I will just reiterate, these are people-funded campaigns, right? These are $5 makes a difference. $20 makes a difference. $5 once a week makes a difference, right? A couple of phone calls makes a difference. Buy a shirt, whatever it is, right? Whatever. Share this post, share their posts, follow them, like, get them in the algorithm. All that helps, right? It's, they're fighting the big corporate machine, right? But they are, again, not to overuse the word, they are righteous on the cause, right? So you hear the policies they're talking about, you see their authenticity, right? They need us to get across the finish line and make these changes. So Z, same question back to you.
Absolutely. And first off, let me just once again thank Reverend Haynes for joining us, Eric for hosting the show today. This was truly a pleasure. And I feel like we could have gone on for a few hours, but we want to make sure that we allow everyone to get everything else done today, because this was a very engaging conversation. What I will say is this. We are in a historic moment in our nation's history. What you decide to do in the next few days could drastically shape the future of our country, whether it remains a democracy or not. If we allow corporate establishment Democrats to come in during this blue wave, we will not get the progress we need. We need fighters like Reverend Haynes who will not only fight for you, but they will start fights for you. And together, I loved how Reverend Haynes said this the other day, we're going to turn it up. And we're going to do this together. But this only happens if everyone joins this movement and supports progressives all across the country. For my campaign, you can go to zeeshanfortexas.com. There's multiple ways to get involved. You can immediately contribute to the campaign. I hope after this call, if you're going to contribute to my campaign, whatever you're going to contribute after this session today, give an equal amount to Reverend Haynes, please. He needs it just as much as I do, and I want to make sure that both of us get to Congress together. Number two, you can sign up to Phone Bank. There's a snowpocalypse happening in Dallas right now. No one can go outdoors. It's a great time to make calls. We have a sign-up link. You can get on, make phone calls for us. Spend 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however much time you have, make some phone calls. Number three, go and canvass for us when the weather gets better. Canvass for me, go canvass for Reverend Haynes. Go door to door, take our literature, go get the word out. We are running people-powered campaigns. I'm not investing in TV ads, in radio ads, and all that stuff. We're just going out there and talking to the voters like we're talking to you right now. So please join the canvassing, join our mobilization, people-powered campaign. The last thing I'll say is this is very easy for you to do for me and Reverend Haynes. The easiest thing you can do. Follow us on social media, like our content, share our content, and share our message. If you're in either of our districts, I saw there's a really awesome progressive that's on this call, Michelle, who runs Lone Star Left. It's an amazing, it's just like the Daily Bern covers the entire country. Lone Star Left covers Texas, and she does amazing work for the progressive cause. Thank you so much for joining the call, and thank you for doing it. My point in saying this is you can get involved through these progressive media channels. Follow their content. That can help us get more progressives elected if you expand their voice by sharing their content and everything else. So like our social media, follow us, share the content that's out there, and share the message with your friends and neighbors that live in the district to go out there and vote. Early voting starts February 17th. It ends on February 27th, and election day is March 3rd. With your support, we're going to save this country. We're going to make a big difference. And Reverend Haynes and I will go to Washington to fight on your behalf and to start fights for you to save this country and make this country better. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I just one word in closing for me. I just want to thank both you gentlemen for stepping up during these dark times and, jumping into the fray, right? So it's not easy. We could watch the news, we could get despondent, but you guys are, doing the exact opposite. You're stepping up, you're running, you're putting your lives on hold, you're putting all in, right? So, on behalf of your constituents and around the country, I thank you for doing that. Godspeed, March 3rd. And again, to the activities that we can all do, you can engage in that anywhere in the country. You don't have to be in their districts. You can send them money from anywhere. You can phone bank from anywhere, right? Don't just focus on your district. That time has passed. We need all hands on deck for all of these seats to turn back the tide of fascism in our country here. So I thank you both. Thanks.
And this is a first in the nation primary. So Reverend Haynes and I are first in the nations. And so out of the darkness can come light. We are providing hope. You are providing hope. We do not want to get despondent. We need to work together through the political process to provide hope for ourselves and hope for everyone. And I think that together we can achieve victory. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Reverend Haynes, I'll give you the final words if there's anything you want to say, and then we'll wrap it up.
You said it so well. I want to thank both of you again for your leadership And thank you to all who tuned in. This is a fight for our future. We need outside vision, voices, and values in the House. We need it in the Senate. Both Zeeshan and myself, we've been outside fighting, and now we're going to bring those values and that vision into the House of Representatives, because the people's house needs to hear from the people. And that is what we promise to bring. They call it the people's house. The people are not being heard, but we want to make sure the people are heard in the people's house. Because again, if democracy etymologically has to do with people power, then that has to do with everyday people recognizing that the power of the people is greater than that of the people in power, especially when we elect representatives who represent. And that's what we pledge to do.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you both. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you.